So I want to talk about the Dark Side of the Ring, the Brian Pillman episodes. And, it's a very, very sad story about Brian Pillman. And I want to mention that I think that when I think about Brian Pillman, I think about somebody who was very self destructive, and ultimately the consequences of his actions really hurt his family. So, you know what? I'm somebody who's had a history of self destructive behavior or just taking things too far. Like, I remember, like, in high school, I used to be like, not watching what I say, or, I've had some jobs when I was in my younger 20s that I've don't have anymore because I just, I was a habitual line stepper. And sometimes, I always kind of blame bad management or just other people for how I've kind of turned out when actually there is some self accountability that I need to take. So what I want to kind of say is that sometimes you don't realize how your actions hurt other people in shockwaves. You know, his journey and his mistakes have really made me think about how some of my bad behavior when I was younger really hurt my family, or put them through a lot of stuff, or made them kind of worry when they didn't need to. So the story about Brian Pillman is that he was a professional wrestler, and he was very, very talented athletically. Like, he definitely would be somebody in the X division, somebody who would do well in the AEW, and somebody who would do good matches with Kenny Omega when he started, because he was in that very high flying style. Obviously, in professional wrestling during the '90s, they really did not care about the high flyers that much. They cared about more about the storytellers, the feat of strength wrestlers. Like, obviously, Hogan's body slamming Andre was a titanic thing. And then also too, when wrestlers started out like Chris Kanyon, at that time cartoony gimmicks were very, very popular. So what happened with Brian Pillman is that ECW started getting some popularity, so did FMW. So he kind of just, and then Jerry Springer became popular, and then movies like Pulp Fiction became popular in the early '90s. The Simpsons, All in the Family. So he kind of looked at pop culture, and he was kind of like saying that if he pushed the envelope a little bit, that's going to garner attention. And then also the other thing too is that there were a lot of people in wrestling magazines saying that professional wrestling is real, professional wrestling is fake, is it real or is it fake? And he kind of wanted to just do a lot of controversial stuff to kind of say, okay, well, I want to work the audience. So the audience will always have that controversy, and controversy creates cash. You'll always meet people who will be like, you know what, this is a bunch of fake crap. And there'll be people who will be like, oh, well, that's real and whatever. And then in his personal life, Brian had children with many different women. So he was somebody who loved his children, so he wanted to be a financial provider. And it got to a point with him where he wasn't making the money that he wanted to in WCW. So he decided to go to ECW, cause some controversy there to get attention from WWF, because WWF had the most money at the time. And he wanted to do something where WWF and WCW will be auctioning off bigger and bigger contracts to sign him to the company. And he ultimately decided. And then what happened was, like, later on, Brian Pillman just was like, okay, well, I know I'm gonna get a big payday. I'm gonna get a good contract. So he bought like a big Hummer, and he got into an accident where he hurt his ankle. He damaged his face. He damaged his leg and all that. And then after that injury, he kind of was just very like distraught, because he was kind of like, I want to provide for my family. I want to show that I'm fine. I want to show that I want to tough it out and all that, because he was afraid of losing his job because of that, because he can't perform, or like having his contract closed early. And then also he wanted like the same level of success like Austin, Mick Foley, and all the other prominent stars of the Attitude Era. And then also like his very edgy style, using a lot of profanity, taking things a bit far. The most controversial segment in professional wrestling was like him with a gun in Austin. He he definitely wanted to be on those. He definitely wanted more mainstream than he is right now to be one of those people that were known for starting the Attitude Era and all that, and just and also profit from it. You know, like Mick Foley was a champion, Austin was a multiple time champion, Rock was a multiple time champion. Um, Austin and Rock are in movies right now, and I think that as Jim Ross was saying, that I think one of the sad things was that Pillman may have had to understand that even if he couldn't be successful in the ring, he could have been a good announcer. He could have done some other things too. He could have been developmental or whatever. You know, he didn't need to just go back into the ring and feel like that was the way to prove himself, because that was killing him, and he took a bunch of painkillers. And I don't remember like what the cause of death was, but there was some controversy that it was because he abused a lot of prescription pills. And then there's also a story that he was predisposed to heart failure through genetics. But I think like his after death is also very, very tragic. Like his son, like I'm gonna start off like this, like that I believe I believe one of his partner was one of his partners was Melanie or Melina, and she appeared on WWE television after the night that he the night after he died, where she was interviewed by Vince McMahon, and she told Vince not to mention anything about drugs and steroids. And the first question he asked her was about was it did he die because of steroids or prescription pills or painkillers? And she kind of just like had this little speech about perhaps it was that, and all the wrestlers should really think about the consequences when they abuse stuff like that. So I really, really just think that I just really think that it was kind of sad because she was being a bit exploited, and she told Vince McMahon not to ask her that question, and he does that because definitely Vince McMahon is that type of person. He is a bastard, and I also think that there's a sense of just trying to push the envelope, and he more cared about pushing the envelope, even if he threw people under the bus, or even if he got a reaction out of people, type of thing. So it wasn't right for him to just violate her wishes. And then also there was things like when Brian Pillman was passing away, that there were cameras showing up at his house. I believe at his funeral there was going to be some cameras or some wrestlers there, so it would kind of look like a public event, just so they can profit off his death or whatever. But it was definitely really sad because it was kind of like and I know like Brian Pillman Jr. and a few other people kind of saw the mother as a gold digger for going on television, and then she got a lot of Brian's royalties. So she, so there's some kids who never saw a cent of that, and they kind of just saw that, and then the mother who got all the royalties was a bit of a was like kind of like had alcohol issues. She got married to a guy who was abusive to Brian Pillman Jr. And other things like that. So she kind of just created a lot of chaos, and she was really about her needs. So it's really sad, but ultimately Brian Pillman Jr. like his dream is to have a son one day, be a really good father, not like be a really good father, and also learn from his father's mistakes. But I do think that also that again, it was really, really sad just realizing how Brian Pillman Jr. He idolized his father. He loved his father, and then his father was gone, and then his mother married a person that was abusive to him, would destroy his stuff. Whatever passion he had, he would destroy it. And then also, his father would do things like, you're grounded for 6 months and keep him in a room. And then also would train dogs that he had as pets to attack him if he ever came out and stuff like that. So, it was really sad that he kind of dealt with all that, and he's a strong person for overcoming that. But it's really just sad. But that happens when we don't give a shit about when we give too much of a shit about our own like needs and partying and everything like that, and we're not in our children's lives because we just make choices not to be there. I've had really bad depression. I've had self-destructive behavior, And I always thought to myself, if I do something stupid, and I take myself out of this world. How is my younger brother's probably gonna be devastated? He's probably gonna blame himself. He's probably gonna feel like, you know what? Well, maybe because he was like a very bratty kid growing up, but he's not that way anymore. Maybe he'd be like, you know what? I kind of pushed him away from the family or whatever. Or I would have parents that would kind of be like, afraid about me because I'm kind of messing up. But I kind of think through this episode, it's a reminder that family is really, really precious to us, and we always have to respect our family. And it's very selfish if we decide to live a life of just fucking up, and or even if we are celebrities or we're popular somewhere by making daredevil choices or reckless choices or abusive choices that are abusive to our health. We ultimately have to just value the people in our life. You can't just kind of put your needs. You can't just put what you want forward. And I think, like as Ric Flair said, that I love what Ric Flair said when he said that if he could say anything to his son who passed away, which was I wish I was less like a friend and I was more like a father to you. And then I remember, like, one time Ric Flair said on television that he apologizes to his family for being so selfish, but obviously Ric Flair is a taboo subject right now, but obviously the Plane Ride from Hell episode, it hurts Charlotte Flair's career. It hurts like any other Flair that wants to be popular or be a professional wrestler because he made some really, really bad choices, sexual assault choices, and sexual harassment choices in his past. But I do kind of will say that you really don't know if you are a provider and you really love your family. Sometimes you just forget how selfish you really are when when sometimes you let fame get to your head, or you say, you know what, well, I'm getting paid to take this many risks with my life or with my body, and I'm going to keep on going. Sometimes you have to realize that you have to stop or change your career to be for your family long term and to avoid them a bunch of pain. So, it's a very beautiful story that, I think that the Pillmans as a family just overcame a lot of hell that they went through. But I think it's a cautionary tale, and I wish Brian Pillman Jr. the best in AEW. And I also kind of wish for him to be a father and just really learn, and also just understand that, even if there's a lot of people who want the Attitude Era to come back, and even if he has a talent for being edgy and going that direction, he just he understands that his father is a cautionary tale about working to have everything, having the cusp of everything, and then just having it all taken away because he decided to make some very self-destructive choices. And being your worst enemy is your own choice, and that's a fuck up I've made. So it's a very powerful 2 episodes. Very, very sad, and I think it's a good reminder of how we're not punished by we are not the only ones just punished by our actions. Everybody is, even the people that we care about. So we all just have to stop being our worst enemies, and sometimes we have to know what our weaknesses are and what can kill us, and what we're doing every day that kind of leads us to potentially killing us. And then the other thing we have to learn in our lives is to grow the fuck up, because sometimes that could be the end of us, and that could hurt a lot of people more than you ever know. And fortunately, the Pillmans bounce back, but there's a lot of families who don't bounce back from parents who are not there anymore based on their own bad choices. So it's a very powerful episode. It's a very cautionary tale, and it's and I think, like, I love the ending, how after all that darkness and pain, there is a lot of hope. And there's a lot of people who want to learn and become better. So I think it's a very sad story. I like how it talks about the exploitation that the family faced and the dysfunction, but it also talks about how people overcome the goodness of the goodness of the human spirit as well. So I really just think that it's important. It's a very, very important episode about choices and personalities and not being your worst enemy, but also realizing the good that you can put in the world if you respect your life, and you understand that respecting your life helps the lives of other people in your life.